The peace of Christ be with you. This is a midweek reflection for Third Reformed Church on August 19th. And here in the dog days of summer, a lot of us are starting to pay closer attention to what's going on in our gardens. This is a beautiful time in a garden's life where all of the hard work of preparing the soil, of planting, seeding, watering, all of that work comes to fruition, and there's food ready to eat. In the Peterson household, that means we're starting to have tomatoes stack up almost faster than we can eat them or Jen can them. And I am so glad that we can keep a little garden plot in the middle of our city lot on the west side of Grand Rapids because I grew up around gardens. We usually kept one in our own backyard that my mother and my sister and I would tend to throughout the summer. That one paled in comparison to my grandfather's garden. You might be starting to get tired of hearing me tell stories about my Grandpa Gordon, my mom's dad, who was so important in my life. But he kept a huge garden with all kinds of crops in it. But his favorite, by a long shot, were his gourds. And of course, being named Gordon, they were gourds. He would train them up along the split rail fence along the back of the garden right by the alley. And eventually he built this trellis that was maybe 4 foot wide, 6 foot long, 8 foot tall. And he would grow those gourds up over the whole thing. And I used to love it in the summer, walking through that tunnel of leaves and looking up, trying to find where the fruit was growing. And then week by week, guessing with each other which one was going to end up being the biggest by fall. I loved those times in the garden with him. I loved hearing his stories about growing up on a Mennonite farm and the realization that gardening, especially in his later years, was a connection point to his own childhood memories of his parents and siblings that he had loved and lost along the way. And in that, I came to realize that gardens teach us a lot about life and death. This whole cycle of hope and anticipation, sprouting a new birth, growth, coming to fruition, harvest, decline, death, dormancy. Right? It gets compressed into the space of 1 year in a garden. But what it's teaching us is the same pattern that all life experiences. So in hindsight, I could even say that gardening with my grandfather helped prepare me for his own death. After all, he was just going the way of all gourds. And I'm grateful for those reminders that God builds into the natural world to help us recognize those patterns. And even in a time like this where so much feels uncertain and tumultuous, we recognize that these same cycles of God's design are playing out around us. We're reminded that it was from dust that we came and to dust will return. And what matters is how we live the days in between. So I was reflecting on all that this week. It made me think of a song that I grew to love in college. In that time of my life, my favorite band was this kind of offbeat Christian jam band called Waterdeep. And the front man for that, Don Chaffer, had done some solo work earlier in life, including this song called Take Me. And I eventually realized that one of the reasons I loved the song was because there was a line in it that always made me think of my grandpa, where he says, his hands are gnarled, they're in love with the earth, and they're dying to go there again. So I thought for this midweek reflection, I'd pull out the guitar and share that song with you. So this is Take Me by Don Chaffer. Old ain't a word that I'm fond of, she said, but these days I've begun to lose count. Mumbling, she rolls in her wheelchair and says, I'm afraid they have closed my account. There's a blur that occurs in the line of a life that decays the whole notion of sense. And it calls to the past, insisting that it lasts while we're climbing down reality's fence, singing, take me take me. Write my name in the most holy tome. And when it's my time to assume the sublime, take me to my promised home. In his hands are gnarled, they're in love with the earth, and they're dying to go there again. We say the essence of life is strong in our youth, slowly buried under wrinkles of skin. But there's God in the way that life comes to an end, in the way that it draws to a close, in the saying of soul to the house of the skin. You're too weak now to really oppose, singing, take me, take me. Write my name in the most holy tome. And when it's my time to assume the sublime, take me to my promised home. Take me, take me. Write my name in the most holy tome. And when it's my time to assume the sublime, take me to my promised home. Well, I hope you recognize God's rhythms in your own life in the week to come.